Let's talk about a coaching model known as the non-directive approach. Now, you as a coach do not impose your own solutions when using the non-directive approach. This is a model that's used by a lot of therapists. Therapists, especially I've noticed therapists who are marriage and family therapists or MFTs, they love this approach because it really leaves wide open the possibility for the client, or in their case, the patient, to fill in a lot of the blanks, to create, to explore, to expand on their own without being told what to do, without being given firm directives such as you must quit smoking, or you must start this business, or you must leave this person, or you must do this or that. Instead, it's suggested in a very roundabout way. So this model is very powerful in that it, from the beginning, empowers the client to start making their own decisions. Now, when I say non-directive, don't get confused and don't think that you're just sitting back watching everything happen and somehow getting paid as a spectator, because that's not what's going on. What is going on is that rather than telling them yes or no, you are actually creating an opportunity for them to make their own decisions, and you're monitoring the whole time. It's not as if they make a mistake, you're just going to let it happen. You're going to be watching, and if something happens that you feel is out of sorts or not quite going to produce what they want, then it's your duty and obligation to step in and say something and offer some guidance. Even if the guidance is still non-directive, at least you can say, well, how do you feel about that decision that you've made? Do you feel that you could possibly explore some other options before making it? Not everyone's going to really enjoy this method. I'm not saying that as a coach you have to use this, and I'm not saying that you're going to use this with every client if you do, because some clients want you to tell them what to do. They don't want non-directive, they want directive. But the non-directive approach can be very powerful for the clients who enjoy it, and if you prefer to work that way. The model seems as though it wouldn't work, doesn't it? It seems as though, well, you're going in there and you're not really giving any direction. What are you doing? You're constantly offering possibilities and sort of holding up a mirror, letting them see what they're doing and letting them decide if that's causing the results that they really want to cause and create in their lives or in their businesses. So with a non-directive approach, you support and guide clients to find the answers. You're not going to show them the answer. You're not going to take them by the hand and say, come here, this is where we're going. See the answer? There it is. Do this, do that. You're supporting and guiding them to find the answers. I remember a few years back when I was a hypnotherapist in Los Angeles, I came finally to the conclusion that I needed to have someone to go to. I needed someone to dump all of my things on. You see, everyone was coming into me and saying, hey, here's what's going on with me. I'm stressed out. I need hypnosis. I need to stop smoking. I need to lose weight, and so forth and so on. Well, it got to a point where all these people coming into my office and coming into my life and telling me all these things really needed to go somewhere. It really needed an escape hatch. I didn't have anyone to talk to. Here I am taking on the burden of the world, taking on everyone's problems, everyone's challenges, helping them out. But I'm hearing this every day, all this negativity coming at me. Finally, I decided that I need someone to talk to. So that's how I know about marriage and family therapists. Now, I didn't have a marriage or a family at the time, so marriage and family therapists aren't necessarily people who only work with people who are married and have families. They are people who are counselors. It's just a title. It's a different type of therapist. But they use, by and large, a non-directive approach. And so it was great. Once a week, I got to go in there and just talk. Instead of my clients talking to me, it was me talking. It was my turn to dump everything on somebody else and say, here's what I'm going through. I'm going through this. I'm going through that. And the therapist worked with me. Very supportive, and she guided me. I still to this day remember things that she said to me. Her husband, by the way, was a very famous screenwriter. So it was actually fascinating to work with her. I had tremendous respect for both her and her husband. So I was able to once a week work with this person who's very dynamic, full of energy, and full of helpful guidance. But never once did she say, Steve, here's what you need to do. She would just put the opportunities, the possibilities before me. She'd show me a mirror of what was going on in my life. She would support and guide me to find the answers. She never at any time said, Steve, come on, here's the answer. Can't you see it? It was never like that. But every single time, I would get to the answer. I would get where she wanted me to go through her support and guidance. So although you're not going to be acting as a therapist, in some sense, though not legally as a therapist, in some sense you will be helping people sort of like a therapist does, in the sense that you will be, in a non-directive way, supporting them and guiding them to find their own answers. So you're going to discuss options, but never recommend one option. Now again, as you can see, this may become frustrating to your clients, because they may see that you see the answer. And I remember sometimes when I was going through non-directive therapy, sometimes it's frustrating. I knew that the therapist knew the answer. It wasn't anything complicated. I knew that. It wasn't anything that it was going to take me 10 years to find out. I knew that too. But I also knew that she knew it because she was outside of me. She was someone other than me. And when you're dealing with someone other than you, they can see all your stuff. They can see what's really going on. You present what you think is going on, but the world around you, they put it together. They know what's going on. People in your life, they know what's going on. They can see it. They can see it better than you sometimes. It's kind of like seeing your back. It's hard to see your back unless you look into a mirror and have another mirror behind you. But someone else can see your back easily. They can see what's back there. They can see if there's any dirt on it or anything. It's kind of like that. I knew that she knew what was going on back there. She could have just brushed it off, but no. Instead, she discussed options, but never recommended one. Well, to some people, this gets frustrating. They want to save time. If you see what's back there, why don't you just brush it off for me and we'll get on to the next challenge. We'll get on to the next thing on my back, or however you want to look at it. So you can see how the non-directive approach may not work in every situation. But when it works well. And it works toward the greater good. It works toward the idea of you empowering your clients. You're not trying to cripple them. You're not trying to get them dependent upon you. You're trying to empower them. That's what you're doing. That's what you're creating. You're creating empowering situations. This is a great way to create a series of empowering situations, one after the other. If you can get them up and running with this, then you are going to have them coming up with solutions to their own challenges, one after the other. Now, one thing that's going to potentially stand in your way is your ego. You're going to say, wait a minute, if I'm constantly empowering them, taking myself out of the position, working, as Steve told me, to get myself out of a job, even though he said that would work, working to get myself out of a job, then how am I a remaining part, a vital part of this situation? You're a vital part because you're a facilitator. You're a facilitator for their success. You are a cheerleader. You're a coach. You're on their side. You're a friend, in a sense, a friend they're paying for, but a friend nonetheless. That means that you think positive things toward them. You want them to succeed. So you're constantly helping them become stronger and stronger. Ask open questions. Instead of saying, well, which do you want to do? Do you want to do this or that? Instead of saying that, how about something like, what would you do in this situation? How do you feel about the situation? Now, again, you can potentially set yourself up for getting your clients frustrated if you go too far with this. You know how therapists get made fun of sometimes as people who just sit there with a pen and pad of paper and say, well, how do you feel about this? Well, how do you feel about that? Without ever offering anything, just asking that open-ended question over and over. So you don't want to make it too vague too often. You may want to mix non-directive with directive. However, non-directive is very powerful if you ask the right open questions. Now, this is something you're going to get a feel for over time. You're going to eventually have a feel for whether or not you should use a non-directive approach with a particular client, and you're also going to have a feel for the questions to ask them. Once you help them overcome a few hurdles, the rest become easy because you know how to prod them. You know how to get them to give you the response that's going to actually help them. You're going to know which questions to ask. So rather than there being a manual of coaching that gives you every question to ask in every situation, you're going to get a feel for that. You're going to get a feel for which questions to ask a person in certain situations based on who they are and how they interact with their world and how you know that they can get to the results. And what is the goal here? The goal here is that they will eventually be able to ask these questions themselves. These questions, or types of questions rather, will be programmed into their heads. They will know when they come across a crossroads where they have to decide something, they will know which questions to ask. For example, which of these options would best benefit my 5-year goals? If I have goals that I want to reach in 5 years, and I have 5 options in front of me, 5 different paths I can walk down suddenly, I'm going to ask myself, which of these paths best represents the path that's going to lead me to where I want to be 5 years from now? Once I answer that, the answer to which path I should take is also answered, if that is my criteria for answering questions. Now, if I'm just interested in getting through till next week, then the questions become different. Which of these 5 paths will help me get through until next week? And sometimes in business, when you're called in, it's going to be a situation like that. The business is perhaps on the verge of financial chaos. They just want to get by until next week. Actively listen. This is something that's going to come up for you over and over, not just in your training with me, but in your life and, more importantly, in life coaching. Actively listen. You need to make sure that you're actively listening, because what's going to happen in many cases is they're going to give an answer. They're going to give you an answer or throw out an answer when you say, which of these 5 paths do you think will be most beneficial for you to achieve your goals, to get to where you want to be in 5 years? They're going to throw out an answer. It may not be one of the 5 choices. They may not come back with that. They may come back with something else. They may come back with something that's got more information in it, which leads you to the next question. That's why you need to actively listen. So many times, clients of mine in hypnotherapy have given me information that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't been listening actively. They say things about one thing, but they give me information I need about something else. Maybe they're talking about what they don't like about Sally. And when they say that, they say, well, I don't like Sally's belly, the way it's always hanging out. I just don't like that about her. Well, what happens many times when we're talking about other people, and especially putting them down physically, a lot of times we're talking about things we don't like about ourselves. And a lot of what clients reveal about themselves comes out when they talk about other people. So maybe this person has a weight situation, a weight challenge that they're embarrassed about. They didn't come to see me about that. They came to see me about smoking. But through their talking about someone else, I find out that that's the way they feel about themselves. How do I know that? Because I can see that they are, in fact, overweight, and they are actually describing themselves very vividly. The thing they don't like about Sally is exactly what they probably don't like about themselves. So actively listening goes a long way. You're going to hear all kinds of things that they didn't mean to say, that they didn't mean to offer up. Their subconscious minds are constantly throwing out information that they're not even aware of. And it goes back to the therapist or anyone outside of you seeing you and knowing you better than you see and know yourself, because they're not buying any of it. Any of the little games you play with yourself, any of the things you tell yourself or others, they're not buying it. Believe me, no one's ever buying anything that you're putting out there that you know is inauthentic. Nobody's going to buy it except you. Everyone sees it except you, and that's the way we all are. It's not you, it's everyone. We're all like that. But someone outside of the person you're working with, meaning you You are different than the person you're working with. You're different than your client. So you become that person. You become kind of like their therapist, though you're not really their therapist. You become the outside person who's listening, who's catching everything. And you can call them on it every now and then in a nice way, but you must always actively listen.